Welcome to Playful Podcast, your guide into the underground scene where we discover topics on kink and electronic music every week. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on our next episode. Paulita Pappel is a Madrid-born feminist filmmaker, producer, and actor. She moved to Berlin for porn, obviously, in 2005, and ever since her name has been popping up everywhere in the scene. Today, she's one of the founders of Lustry.com, which is a platform where real-life couples film their sex lives and share it with the community. She's also started Hard Work, which is a little bit more hardcore. In porn, she's been both behind and in front of the camera, and in our conversation we get to know why she chose to work within the field and also a lot about her entrepreneurial skills, her struggles along the way, and her best advices for someone who's curious to join the scene, either in front of or behind the camera. Enough said, let's speak to Paulita. I am Amanda, and this is Playful Podcast. Yeah, okay, I'm so excited to have you here, first of all. And to dive right in, you were just saying that it's obviously really dark outside.
Yes.
Anyone who can see. So it's late not night, but it's evening time. And you just finished up some work that you told me about that comes from people like shaming.
So basically,
masturbation.
Yeah, exactly. Or basically, it is our answer to this whole movement, or I don't even want to call it movement, to this whole lobby. It's a religious lobby, really, that is telling people that porn is bad and they should quit watching porn and they should quit masturbating altogether. And the whole idea is that if you quit masturbating, you're going to become an alpha male, and there's so many parts of your life that are going to be enhanced. And it's really a lot of bullshit. And I think it's really dangerous, even because it's been proven that people that are actually struggling with porn, they think they have to quit altogether and they don't manage, and then it brings us in a very dark place. So in order to counteract this whole narrative, from last year, what we're doing is we're creating a course that is going to be called How to Watch Porn. And basically, it's an 8-lesson workshop where you learn about porn, like what is it, and we dismantle some negative myths that there are around porn. Things like...
What are some?
So, for example, there's this idea that if you masturbate too much to porn, that has a negative impact in your life, in your sexual life with others. Because then, you cannot orgasm, for example, with what they call quote unquote normal sex, right? And this is a stupid, in my opinion, it's very problematic because it's presupposing that there's a right or wrong way of having sex, which I don't think there is. And I think, if you...
I cannot even understand it, because I don't understand what is the right way for them then.
Well, I think that, a lot of people see sex as the perfect sex would be the one where you have penis in vagina, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's and then you should orgasm together.
At the same time.
At the same time, simultaneously.
Okay.
And, this is a complete erroneous ideal that I think we have from non-pornographic films, like romantic comedies. Every time you see a sex scene in there, the perfect sex scene, it's like that. It's really quick penis in vagina penetration, simultaneous orgasm, and then day after they're there with their blankets over their breasts, right? And I think we have these ideas, and then we think that that other things like masturbation, that's something there's a hierarchy, there's real sex, and then there's masturbation, which is I don't know, there's a second layer or something.
A little bit guilt.
Yeah.
Even I remember, I think I already, did I tell you this weekend? I don't know. Anyway, when I was 4 years old, I found the massage device that my parents had for their back or shoulders, I guess. But I was like,
that's what they told you.
Exactly, that's what they told me. But I found better need for it, and I was so young. But then they had it in their bedroom, and I was there, and I was borrowing it, and my dad walked in on me. Mm-hmm. And he was like, Amanda, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm massaging my vagina, and he was like, okay, and he left, and he was laughing so much down the stairs. I didn't know, I just knew it felt good, whatever I did.
It's so accurate though. For a 4-year-old, you'd be like, I'm massaging my vagina.
Exactly.
It's actually pretty informed.
Yeah, that's what I did. But Yeah, but already there I knew like, okay, this was something weird, or like that was not natural or normal, or
And I think
uh,
everyone has some kind of experience in their lives that has been like that. A moment where they, as young people, we felt, okay, there's something about this that is either wrong or weird, or like, something to laugh about or to feel ashamed. And I think that's when we're developing all of these feelings of shame around our own bodies and sexualities.
exactly, yeah.
And that is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like no one spoke to me about it afterwards until I like had to like find it out on my own ways, like through magazines or whatever. But that was pretty bad. Also, the education has been like not so great, but
It's
I
really
definitely
bad.
understand the feeling of feeling guilty after masturbating, and that's also something I did for years after this happened. I don't do it today, thankfully. I've come more far away, but I definitely did it until I was like maybe even 18 or 20.
Yeah, and I think it's so normal. It's so sad to think that masturbation, which is a part of like a very healthy part of our sexualities, or can be, it's so like makes us so miserable. Like it's horrible. It's something that should make you feel good, that should help you feel good in your body and accept your body and celebrate what your body can give you for pleasure. And instead of that, we're having all of these weird associations that are making us feel bad.
And you said, I remember us speaking last week about that there are advertisements that are shaming masturbation and these things on the porn platforms.
Mostly on educational platforms as well. So basically this idea that porn is bad is so pervasive that in very many mainstream platforms that are not, they're not necessarily like religious or have any alignment with any religious organization or anything, they still allow for all of these discourses. I mean, there's if you go on Udemy, which is an online, like educational online platform, and you Google, or not Google, but you search for porn, you'll find like over 100 courses telling you how to quit porn. And half of these courses are literally priests with their priest suits saying porn is a sin, masturbation is a sin, God is gonna punish you, you need to quit, and it's like, whoa, this is okay, but you search for apprehensive, like inclusive, good information and resources on like how to watch porn in a way that is healthy and good for you, there's none. And that's a problem, I think if it would be balanced, and we're lacking, is what you're saying, like where is the educational resources, not only for young people, but for adults to like, have a better understanding of what porn is, of what the industry looks like, and of how you can use porn for your own pleasure, for your own sexual self-care practice in a way that is good for you. Because there's no right or wrong about it. It's just, well, what is good for you, And we don't learn to like ask ourselves these questions. I mean, we do because, we're really interested in the topic. But so many people, like, they just, you hear in media so much misinformation. And then if you don't think about it too much, you just have this vague idea that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
And you don't question it so much until maybe someone comes like us and it's like, no, but actually think about it. Where have you learned that porn is bad? Like, how do you know? Or like, what does that even mean? And what do you actually feel when you watch porn? If you take away the part where you've learned that you should feel bad.
Yeah. So what are some of the, like, you said it's like an 8-step course you're doing.
Yeah.
What are some of the steps?
So the very first step is understanding consent, like the principle of consent. So we use this acronym from Planned Parenthood, it's FRIES. I don't know if you know it. It's like, consent should always be freely, let me get it right, freely given, reversible, informed, embodied, and specific, which is basically a really good way of understanding like what it means for a person to actually give consent, And we apply that to porn. I think this is really crucial, because what we do is we say, okay, if we apply the principle of consent in order to define porn, then it's really easy for us to separate between, porn that has been created involving consenting adults, or any other kind of depiction or recording of a sexual act that was not either not recorded with consent or not distributed with consent, or even, I mean, worst case scenario that is like actually recording like a sexual crime or something. And I think all of these things, usually people use the word pornography, you know, as in like child pornography or revenge porn. And I think that's super problematic because it's not porn. There's other words for it. It's like you can call it image-based sexual abuse in the case of revenge porn, or in the case of so-called child pornography. I even like shudder saying that word. It's called, the appropriate term is child CSAM, is child sexual abuse material, you know, and we need to be calling these things by its name in order to prosecute them properly. And I think it's really important to make this distinction between like their stuff, that's just illegal stuff, it's bad. It is illegal already. Like we don't need new laws for it. It's already bad, you know, and we need to prosecute it. And then there is porn, that is something that is created with consent. What do you think about that?
I think it's brilliant. Like this is actually a discussion that I've been having with people, also family members. You know, I was home with my family the whole month of September, and I feel that many of my friends are supporting me for sure. Otherwise, they wouldn't be my friends. But family, you don't get rid of that easily. But also, they can be very much like, questioning what we're doing and the angle we're having. Like, why do you let people promote their sexual work through your platform and these things, you know, judgy, and they are like comparing us to not like they don't respect really the way we're angling our work.
Yeah,
if say so.
I really relate to that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I grew up in a context where, you know, I was raised as a feminist, and I've always been a feminist, and I'm still am, and I will always be, you know. But like the way I was a feminist before, when I was like 15, 16 years old, is I thought porn is bad. I thought sex work, or I didn't even know the word for sex work. I thought prostitution was bad, right? And I thought it was a tool of the patriarchy to exploit people. And I really believed it. And I would like argue to death, like shout and be like, never a woman would sell her body.
How old were you then?
Like 15, 16. Yeah, I was really
living in Madrid.
Yes, living in Madrid, I've always been a political person. Like I've always been having discussions with my, you know, within school, and being like, I don't know, everything from abortion to LGBT topics. Like I was always like, you know, championing them and making a big mess out of it. And I felt very strongly about this whole porn thing. You know, up to the point where now I think back and I realize like, okay, I had clearly a conflict in myself, because I was fascinated by the idea of porn, you know, but I knew quote unquote, because people had taught me porn is bad. And then I really felt like, oh, there's something really wrong within me. And I think a lot of these like, you know, attitudes like that are very negative against something, I'm always like, what's behind that? You know, because if you feel so strongly about this, I'm like, what is it that makes it so personally emotional for you? And obviously I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, clearly it was like, I was a very sexual, curious person. You know, I wanted to be and live like a free sexuality, and I couldn't. And there was a lot of things that were telling me like, no, this is wrong. And that's why it was so conflictive. And that's why I came to Berlin.
Okay, wow, I want to hear more about that. Did you watch porn? How was your, you know?
Yeah, I did not watch porn, funny enough. I was fascinated by the idea of porn, and I was maybe even a little bit obsessed with the idea of playing in porn, but I didn't watch porn. I didn't masturbate neither. This is also a fun fact.
Oh, wow. How old were you when you started?
I mean, I tried. I mean, I knew like masturbation is good, or what I learned that masturbation was good, and I was like promoting it. And I did masturbate like in porn when I was performing as a performer in porn. And, you know, it was nice, but it wasn't really something that I would do in private. And I didn't really know how to do it properly with my own body. I got
and
bored.
This is years later.
This is almost embarrassing, but I think I said because like recently I met another porn performer that is kind of my age, And she kind of confessed to me that she never masturbated until like a couple of years back. So like when she was in her 30s. And I was like, oh my God, me too.
Oh,
so
wow.
I think I'm not the only, like, no, I'm not the only one.
But what's amazing is that a new world is opening up for you.
Totally. And
Like-
now I regret. I'm like, oh, damn, all those years lost.
But wow, that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
It's really funny. So I think that's the reason why I didn't watch porn like privately. I started watching porn in Berlin when I came, and I met, porn positive feminist people.
Okay, just stopping a little bit,
Okay.
because now you were in Madrid. We're still a little bit stuck in the story, in the part of the story where you are like active and against porn and this topic. So how did it change?
So I knew I had to get out of there. I mean, I was 17. I hated everything and everyone and myself and whatnot, as you do as a teenager. And I had been in Berlin because I was very lucky. I went with a class in the school trip. And the moment I put a feet in Berlin, I was like, I have to come here. Like, this is the place to be. I couldn't tell you why, but I was like, I belong here. And then I finished school and I came to Berlin. And I still had my strong ideas.
You were like 18.
17.
17.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was the very first time in Berlin. I was 17.
Oh, wow.
A baby. Yeah.
A baby,
Yeah, really baby. Anyway, I was lucky and privileged enough that I could study here. So I started studying, and I took a lot of like gender mainstreaming. It was called back then, gender mainstreaming courses. And I had two professors that I that I really looked up to. They were this feminist woman, and I thought they were really cool. And this whole gender topic was really new to me and really exciting. And in one class, it was not the topic of the class, but there was something about whatever. And as a side note, one of these teachers said something about sex work in a positive way. And I was like, wait, what? Like my word was breaking together. I was like, these are these feminist people and they're talking positive about prostitution.
They were supposed to be smart.
Yeah, I was like, what is it? But then I was like, but there was something, and then I went after class, I went to them and I was like, can I ask you something? And I was really like, I need an answer for this. Like, my life depends on this right now. And I asked them, and they were like, yeah, of course. No, it's actually prostitution. It's, it's called also sex work. It can be, or it is mostly, just work, not a decision. And it needs to be separated from, other kinds of exploitation or something else, blah, blah, blah. And they gave me a magazine. I remember Pro Familia. It's like a German magazine that was talking positively about that. And then suddenly everything made sense, suddenly like all the conflict that I had within me being like, I'm fascinated by everything related to like sex and sexual services, but I think it's really wrong. And I think like I'm wrong. And suddenly it was like, no, there's nothing wrong about it. Yeah. So my mind was blown, I was like, finally I could actually accept myself and be like, okay, what do I do with this now? All my life I had been fighting against it and trying to like push it away and be like, no, this is something wrong. And the moment that I was like, or maybe it's not wrong, we just need to look at it and decide what to do with it, then suddenly a whole world opened. And then I was like, okay, I need to perform in porn.
Explore this.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you already know the porn industry by this time, or you had no, like, I mean, in Berlin?
Nothing. No, I knew nothing really. No, but it went really fast that obviously when you search for something, especially in Berlin, something sexual, you'll find it, right? And I heard from a friend that there was this Swedish filmmaker, actually, Marit Östberg, who was casting for a new film. And she was a feminist filmmaker and she was doing feminist porn. I was like, okay, this is where I belong again. So I basically wrote to her and I was like, I want to perform in your film. And we met and she was amazingly supportive. And, she was like, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're quite young. I mean, I wasn't even that young. I was like 21.
Okay.
But for her, she was like, you need to understand that this might have an impact in your later life and so on. And I was so crystal clear. I was like, listen, I want to live in a world where porn is fine and where performing in porn does not have a negative impact in your life. And if this is the way we're living, I want to do porn and I want to change that world.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
And then you left.
And then I left the room.
No, but yeah.
And then I performed in her film and it was really fun.
Yeah? Were you not nervous?
I was super nervous. And for some really weird reason.
And not even a master at masturbating.
No,
so
not at all.
it's like, but I guess you learned, or like you were watching, like you did your research, I guess, also. Or
I have to say, I almost mostly went with the flow, I think. Yeah, I was so lucky to have like really amazing people. Like the first two performers that I was working with was Matt Kate and I'm not sure the porn name of the second performer, so I'm not gonna say it right now because I'd rather not say their real name. But they were just so. I mean, this is funny because I always tell this. We spend way more time talking than actually shooting porn. You know, we would talk about why we want to do this and how we want to do it. And you know, the very first time in my life that I sat down and someone asked me, "So what do you like? Like, what kind of sex do you want to have? You know, what are your boundaries? What would you like to do today?" was at this porn shoot. And I'm like, I don't know, because nobody ever asked me that, you know what I mean? And it's like, we should do this in our private lives. Like, we need to sit down and talk about it. But I'm like, there's such a lack of communication in our lives. We could learn so much from porn where there's so much more communication about boundaries and what do you feel like and what do you want to do and how does this feel? Do you want more, you know?
Yeah. First time I heard about you, I lived in Sweden, and it was through me discovering Lustery, which you also founded.
Yes.
So how did the journey look like?
So what my journey was like, I started performing and I was very lucky. I mean, Berlin was really cheap back then, so you could live on like a very tight budget.
How cheap? Spoil it.
Spoiler. I mean, this is like 2008, like before 2010. I mean, I was living very cheap, but I was living with like €1,000 €1,000 a month was like, I felt like I was rich. I was like, you know, throwing out my money, inviting my friends to drinks. It was crazy. And the thing is like, you know, I was performing in films where I would earn like between 500 and 800 euros for a shoot. So I would just like shoot, you know, 3 times a month, and I could live for 3 months almost like with it. So it was perfect for me. It was a really, I mean, it's obviously a very privileged position, but I could do so much stuff. And I started working in film, not only in pornographic films, but in other films. There's like a community in Berlin. There still is, but I feel back then it was bigger, but that's maybe because I wasn't there then. You know, where it was this economy where everyone would help each other with each other's projects. It was like, you're directing, I'll do catering. Next time, you know, I'm directing and you're doing production, whatever. It was like an exchange of services within this filmmaking. And I had so much time to do that because I could live from the porn that I did. But that's how I started like doing more, first like catering and production, and then director's assistants, blah, blah. And up until like more directing and producing. And then I was working with a company that's called Erstis. And I had a colleague in there. And the idea of Lustery kind of generated within this context because we were like, here's the thing. I was doing a lot of porn that is so-called amateur porn, which I think the term amateur porn is a bit tricky because amateur actually means that, I mean, the original definition of amateur is that you're doing something that is not your job, right? It's like a hobby. Mm-hmm. But nowadays there's so much porn being called amateur porn that is produced professionally, like very professionally indeed. You know, and I was in a lot of shoots where it was supposed to be, I mean, we were selling this like quote unquote authentic sexuality, but there was a lot of rules. It was like, okay, you can't wear black and you can't wear makeup and you need to have a full bush and this practices yes and this others not. And I was like, I mean, it's totally fine. They paid well and it was great. But I was like, okay, this is not really what it's being marketed as. Like it's a very staged performance, which again, nothing wrong about it. But, you know, it's not a real thing. So I was like, okay, how do we do this? Like, how do we show actually people's sex lives? Because the moment you put a camera in the room, it's not going to be the same thing as if it wasn't a camera. Yeah. And that's how the idea of Lustery came. Because we were like, well, okay, if you have a couple or a throuple, whatever, 2 people or 3 people that know each other, that have an ongoing relationship with each other, and that have a sexual dialogue with each other. And you give them the camera in their hands. And you're like, hey, make this part of your game, you know? Don't treat it as like an external thing, but just like shoot whatever you would do. You know, there's no rules on like what you should do or not do. Just have fun, you know? And there's a few rules on like, okay, it shouldn't be super shaky and there is some quality things.
Yeah, like let's hear more about that because now we're talking about you as knowing how to be in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. Like, what are the most important things you learned, would you say?
So many things. I think one of the most important things that I've personally learned, and that, I don't know if this applies to anyone else, but is that communication is the most important thing ever, always, all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter as a performer in front of the camera or behind the camera. Like, if you like practice to communicate, in a way that is honest, in a way that is like that you're trying really to communicate everything and really and also listen. Obviously, part of communication is listening to the other person. Big part indeed. I think that's the most important thing for a successful, whatever it is, shoot, or I mean everything in life really, but specifically sex and porn. Like that's really, for me, like as a performer, communicating with other performers is so important, and finding like a way of communicating. It doesn't need to be, it needs to be verbal, but it's not just verbal. It's also like nonverbal communication and how you communicate with your body.
Yeah.
And behind the camera, specifically as both director or producer, I think the most important job of a producer, definitely, but I would also say of a director, is like to make sure that you communicate in advance as much as possible, that people are completely, absolutely informed of everything. And
let's get into this even deeper.
Okay.
Because this is something that I learned, that I am very interested in. So like, because you learned a lot, obviously, when you first walked in for your first shoot, but how do you work with the performers? Like, let's take it from start to finish.
So for hard work, which is the most, I want to say like the shoots that we're producing with like a budget and a camera crew, location,
little
makeup.
Short recap on hard work. It's a gangbang focused porn film company.
Yes.
That you created like a year ago, or?
Yeah, like longer than a year ago, together with my partner Rottweiler. Yeah, that's also a fun story, that story. But staying with the performers.
Let's go there later.
So the way we do it is like this. We only work with people that want to work with us. Obviously, but what I mean by that is like we want people that actually feel like enthusiastic about working with us and that they like our concept, right? And basically either we reach out or they reach out to us. And the first thing that's happened is we send them a very long checklist that goes, it starts obviously with your name, your pronouns, your sexual orientation as a performer, your experience as a performer. And then it goes from kissing, up to, penetration, double penetration, triple penetration, all kinds of kinks and whatnot, until like fantasies, special places or references or even film or photography references that inspire you or excite you. And we let the performer fill this out, and they need to tell us how much experience they have with a certain sexual practice and how much they would like to do it in the context of the porn shoot. So this gives us like kind of like a picture of this person and what they would possibly like. And then Rod and I sit down with it and think of possible ideas or concepts or scenarios or formats that would suit this person. And then we pitch it to them. We have like a Zoom call or we meet for coffee or whatever.
Can I ask, was this also a list that you have been using when you've been performing as well, like for the first performance, or is this something that you incorporated within hard work? Yeah,
no, this is something that I created. I based it on, there's a lot of this kind of lists out there, especially in the BDSM scene. There's, and there are similar lists that other productions use in the States mostly. I've seen them, but I guess also in Europe. But we've really grabbed stuff from here and there, and we've created a list that works for us, like specifically. But it's not we really build it. Like it's not something that we took. That I hadn't filled such a list before. Actually, I think it's really useful.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that's what we do. So when we have this picture of the person, like this idea, we meet with them or talk to them and pitch them this concept that we thought about. And then we just, we have a conversation, and either the person, like a lot of the times the people like it and they're like, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. And then we talk, okay, who could be the other performers? And we decide together. But we've had a few cases where the people were like, no, that doesn't really sound like something I want to do. And we're like, oh, okay, well, let's
But
think
you
about
fit so well.
it's like, oh, it would be perfect. But then we come up with something else, you know? So it's really like a back and forth until we find something where the person is like, yeah, that sounds fun. You know, it sounds like a good shoot that I want to do and I want to see myself in it.
Yeah, because hard work, going back there, is also it's surrounded by the actor's sex fantasy. So it's a collaboration together with the main character also.
Exactly.
In some way. But speaking more of hard work, like how did that start?
So
Because it's a little bit more, or it's a pretty much more hardcore than Lustery. That is like filmed by individual couples. And here it's more so a big production team and like the whole shebang.
The whole shebang. Yeah, it is. And I think, I mean, I would love to hear actually like your opinion on this one.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I told you, like when I come from this like thinking porn is bad, right? And then I started, when I started performing myself, I also had like really like rules of what I would do and what I wouldn't do. And for example, one of the first rules was like, I wouldn't perform with men. I was like, I'm only doing queer porn because there's enough of the other porn. You know, I had these ideas that were, you know, after like time after time, I started like questioning those ideas and being like, no, actually, no, that's not true to me. Like that doesn't. I was like, I thought that was like politically the correct thing to do, or you know, I had like there was so many other factors that were influencing my decisions. And like my journey has been one of discovering like, no, that doesn't actually feel right with me. And maybe I want to have sex on camera with cis male presenting people. And I think for me, when I met Rods, it's funny because we met like on a dating app. And in the first conversation...
Shout out Tinder. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Tinder.
No.
But in the first time that we met, we started talking about porn. And he told me that he had been shooting gangbangs for an ex-partner. Like he was together with this person and this person wanted to have a gangbang and wanted to record it.
Because Rod is a film producer.
Exactly. Rod is a filmmaker. Yeah.
Filmmaker, yeah.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, you know, he made it like as a present, as a gift, which I think is a beautiful gift to a partner to organize a gangbang and film it just privately for her. But then he realized he really enjoyed filming it and organizing it and everything about it. And he was like, oh, maybe I want to shoot gangbangs. But he didn't have, I mean, he's not in the porn scene, so he didn't have like the, you know, the network or he didn't know what to do with it.
No,
basically.
That's incredible, like that he organized all that without having the community.
Yeah.
That must have been hard work.
I think it was hard work, yeah. But then he told me about this, and for me it was like, I've always had gangbang fantasies. And I think I'm not the only one.
No, exactly. This is like going back again to childhood memories. Like,
but when you were so like, wrong, but it's so right.
Yeah, exactly. Even like before I ever seen it on porn, like I didn't know what porn was. Back then, you had fantasies about like, oh well, maybe there was another. You know?
Yeah, but it is. I think.
Yeah, it's so natural. It's so in our.
There's something orgastic and super celebratory and sexual about this like group dynamic, right? And so but the thing is like, I mean, clearly, if you say gangbang in like any social situation, everyone's like, you know. It's like
the word is dirty.
It's
like
dirty.
It's like it's put dirt on.
It's the worst.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, and especially like in a feminist context.
Exactly. It's like rape.
Yeah.
It must have been.
It must have been rape. Why?
Which is
because
also a sex fantasy for 99% of the population.
I don't know if 99, but definitely. I don't know where you got your numbers, but definitely a high number.
I just took them. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. Exactly. And the thing is like, when he said it, I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the one thing that I haven't done yet, that I haven't like, I wouldn't have even allowed myself to think about doing gangbangs because it felt so wrong, because it was like, oh no, I cannot reproduce this, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, oh, definitely I can. Like I can do whatever I want as long as it's consensual.
And
you know?
This was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, this was like 2 years ago. That's when we met.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I want in. Like we're doing this together.
On the first date.
Yeah, on the first date, literally.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That's a good date.
It was a good date.
Like, let's start a business. I feel this. Then you go home. Did you go home together also after this date? So, yeah.
And then, and that's how it started. But it was really like, it really felt like this is something that I, that I want to do. And I knew, and it is become true that so many people have a problem with it. And they're like, what are you doing? And like, what is she saying? She's feminist and she's doing this hardcore gangbang porn.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get it. But a lot of people do. And the people that do, they're like, oh my God, this is, just brilliant. I love this. And I'm like, yes, this is why I'm doing it. And it's so liberating.
Yeah, like speaking of people who don't understand it, where are your parents and like family?
Spain.
This? Yeah, they are located in Spain, but like, are they accepting you and what you do?
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I relate to what you were saying at the very beginning, because I am open to my parents, and it's been a journey where we've had a lot of conversations, and we've cried in each other's arms and we've suffered, but we've come to a point where there's a lot of understanding and support, and I'm really thankful for that. And I know that it hasn't been easy for them, because at the very beginning with your daughters,
are they Catholic?
No, thanks God, no. No, my parents are atheists. So it was more about this feminist approach of being like, it's a horrible industry, women are being exploited.
You brought up as a feminist.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was tough. But it gives me so much hope. Like, my mom is someone that, she's over 60, and she keeps learning and she listens to me so much. It's amazing. Like, every time, we have a conversation, like, I don't see her so often because she's living there and I'm here. And then, I know that we'll have a conversation. And then 3 months later, I'll go to Madrid. And then she's like, oh, I found this book. And she's, she was researching on it. And she's like, oh, I went to there was this masterclass in the whatever museum. And I thought it was really interesting. They were talking about queerness and blah, blah. And I'm like, and anti-racism. And I don't know, a lot of stuff that I'm telling her. And I'm like, wow, you don't need to become an asshole when you grow up. You know what I mean? Like, you can keep learning.
Keep learning, keep evolving.
Keep evolving and keep being like, okay, there's even if you were like an activist or whatever as a young person, I see like so many like friends of my parents that were pretty radical when they were young and doing, I don't know, taking drugs, being hippies, whatever. And now they're like over 60 and they're like, oh, this youth nowadays, they don't know anything. And I'm like, why don't you listen? Like, it's so sad that you yourself were, were telling your parents to listen when you were young. And why are you not listening now to your children?
Going back to the start of this talk, we talked about the judgmental, or like the feeling of being like shamed by masturbating, and that this is obviously a conversation you had with your dad.
Absolutely, yeah, because I was telling you before, like, my dad told me when he was a kid, I mean, this was Spain in the like 50s, 60s. It was very Catholic. It was a fascist dictature supported by the Catholic Church. And my dad thought that if he masturbated, he would get blind. He really believed, because that's what he was told. And I'm like, this is not that much time ago. You know what I mean? Like, my dad is not so old.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this is so close to us. And all of these feelings, I mean, we feel so liberated and so woke and whatever nowadays, but there's so much like super deep interiorized feelings of shame and guilt around sexuality. And I think it's a very long process to work through them and to, dismantle all these ideas. And I think that's why I think that the work that you do, and I do as well, but all the work that we're doing surrounding like just talking openly about sex, talking openly about porn, about desires, about fantasies, it's so important, because we need this. Like, we need, like, there's not enough talk. It can never be. There's so many, like, there's millennia of years to dismantle and to like deconstruct for us to really do the deep work of getting rid of those bad feelings.
Yeah.
That makes us miserable,
Yeah, exactly. But you were mentioning that it was a big fuel for you to change this, to like, if you were an actress or actor, you would be able to get any job, even though you have performed in a porn film. And this was kind of the fuel that you started it?
Yeah, definitely, like changing. Yeah, absolutely. Like being like, I want to change this discourse. I want to change the status quo.
Yeah, and I can, like, within a lot of things, there's always like the goal on top of the head, like this is what I'm doing. But then in reality, there are so many things you don't think about. Like there are the struggles. So if we look at your like entrepreneurial journey within being a filmmaker and producer and screenwriter and everything you do, what are some of the stepping stones you've been walking on?
So many. I think if I would have, I always say this, like if I would have known everything I know now, like years ago, I wonder if I would have actually done it. Because this is a tough part. I mean, here's the thing. Being an entrepreneur means insecurity, right? Because you're risking things. You're believing in something and you're doing a lot of work to make it happen and to make it, a sustainable business. But it's a lot of work and you're on your own and nobody's giving you a security. When you have a job, like if you're a civil servant, ideally, or have some other secure job, then okay, at the end of the month, you're getting paid. If you're an entrepreneur, it's like you need to figure it out, right? And the thing with porn specifically is that it's so much harder because there are so many resources that are not available to us, and not for any legal reason, because porn is it's legal. It's completely okay to legal to do porn in Germany, in Spain, in these countries. But a lot of companies, specifically US corporations, of course, they just won't work with us because it doesn't align with their own moral whatever understanding, or because they think that having those kinds of clients is going to scare off other clients, or maybe have a religious background. And that's really unfair. I'm just going to name a few examples because I think it's so people don't know or don't think about it. Like PayPal doesn't work with the adult industry. They just won't. Or MailChimp, even like sending out newsletters. They won't. If you put word porn or sex in your newsletters, and then they will flag. They will look at you. You're a porn company. They will delete all of your content, all of your email addresses without notice. Boom, you're gone. And that's just like two very, very simple examples.
That's so crazy. Like even now, when we did put out an episode on YouTube where we had a link, like a podcast episode with Simon Tarr, the Kit Kat founder, and YouTube was immediately like, it's still deleting the video because of the Lustery link.
You had the Lustery link in there. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I should have warned you.
No. Well, the thing is, we are also walking on these, like in these traps all the time. Like we had account, like Instagram account deleted. It's always a struggle, and we are not even close to doing what you do. But it's still like people are like, it's a mine, like it's a field of mines.
Absolutely, and this is the thing. Like this is what people also don't understand. Like it's not just us. It's bad that it's us, But the thing is, it's people, like you that are putting out content that is absolutely non-explicit and non-graphic. It's also sex educators.
Yes.
It's sex professionals that are putting out valuable information out there. They're being banned. Like Instagram, not to speak of TikTok, it's like some of the most sex-phobic or like anti-sex places there are. And they're huge. There's so many people in there. Like so much of our lives, unfortunately, or whatever, this is the state of things, happens in these spaces. And we are being banned and like, discriminated against, shadow banned, like our content, our accounts being deleted. It's really not okay. Like it's a rampant discrimination.
It is for sure.
Yeah.
And when it's not being deleted, it's being like shadow banned, so you don't reach anyone. And this is also something I'm so fed up with. Like I don't feel like putting, like censoring all we put out. So actually, I am like, okay, maybe we're not going to read so many, but I'm just going to like keep on doing it, because this, like if you read on the guidelines on some of these platforms, they say nothing about the language, yet they're blocking you.
Yeah.
So it's just like fucking tiring.
That's the problem. It's so interesting, because when you look at Instagram or TikTok, it's even worse. And you see like every text that has the word sex is written like zegs or like S+X or like, and it's like, I mean, where are we living? We're living in a world where we're censoring the word sex, sexuality, desire. It's like, this is worse than, in some, I mean, of course, there's so many things that are so much better in society. Like, I'm not trying to like relativize that. I'm super thankful for so many liberties that we have. But like, if you look at social media in certain spaces, it's like, where are we? Like, this is rampant censorship. It's really bad. Like, it feels like, I mean, history is not linear. Like, there's like ups and downs and things are complicated and complex. But I'm scared sometimes. I'm really like, where is this going? Like, there is new laws coming. There's huge religious lobbies right now. I mean, this goes all the way, obviously, to like abortion and all of these things that are happening in the US. And this is not a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like, these are like the way Apple or the App Store work, and the way the terms and conditions are completely, as you're saying, they're completely intransparent. You cannot, you get deleted even if you follow the rules. You cannot like contest that decision, up to like people being deprived of their bodily autonomy to decide, for the right of abortion. Like, that is linked. That is not just like things happening in a vacuum. Like, this is the context that we're living. And I think it's crucial that we understand this and that we have an awareness that we need to keep fighting for our sexual and bodily rights.
So that is definitely like one of the downsides of the industry, the fight. But what are some of the positive things that you've been experiencing?
I think what I'm most thankful for, I think, working in this is the people. I think I've met so many people that are, open-minded, bringing new perspectives. It's really fun to be around and where I can be myself. So I think I would say that's like the most beautiful part of this industry, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it feels like a good filter, actually, for some other people. When I tell I work in porn and people are like awkward and weird, I'm like,
bye.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what? Maybe we're just not meant for each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good. That's really good one. So it's a life hack for people who are coming new to a city.
Yeah.
If you are like open-minded, say you work with something explicit, and then you filter out the people that are like boring. Okay. Totally. Now we have come to the extra material. Now we have come to the part of the podcast where, if you're Patreon, you get to delve in the masterclass of Paulita Pappel, where she goes deeper into her pro tips to anyone who's interested in getting involved in the business. Her biggest lesson since she got started. And we also talk some about the difference on what porn works for women versus men. To find out more, go to patreon.com/playfulmagazine.
It's either this or it's that. This is this or that.
So we have a few this or that questions because I was again crumbling my papers. So you answer either this or that. Super easy.
Okay.
Work vacation or work free holiday?
Work vacation.
This is so interesting. This is like a blessing with all the fight that you go through as a person who starts your own company. It's like the blessing, like the perks is that you at least, hopefully, if you start something you're interested in, you want to do it and you're excited to like bring it to new destinations.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Polygamy or monogamy?
100% polygamy.
Instagram or Twitter?
Good question. I want to say Twitter because I mean, first and foremost, because it's because porn is allowed, right? And that's a huge difference. And Instagram is the algorithm is just sex, like anti-sex, it's fat-phobic, it's racist, it's everything. It's horrible. But that might change.
Exactly. Do you think it's going to change now that Elon Musk is?
Well, it's not only Elon Musk, the whole Elon Musk thing, I don't know. But the real problem is that the UK is trying again to pass a law that they already tried to pass in 2018, but it didn't work out because the law was so bad that it was like, we can't like actually pass this law because it's not actionable. But they're trying it again, and it's the online safety bill. They call it safety because it sounds like a good thing, right? You're like, oh, of course, we want to be safe. Nobody would argue with that, right? But
smart.
Yeah, they're clever. But basically what it is about censorship. And it's about, I mean, it's not only about porn. It has also other fields that I'm not versing because I haven't been looking at it. Obviously, I've been only looking at the part that affects me. But basically, they're saying everything that contains, pornographic material needs to be behind an age verification wall, which first sounds reasonable because you're like, yeah, okay, that sounds reasonable. But the fact is, the implications that has is way, way complicated. So, for example, it would mean that Twitter has to decide if they ban any kind of pornographic image or they put an age verification for making an account.
How old? 16 or 18 or?
Well, 18. I mean, they could still... I don't know if they could still have people under 16 but no show them. I'm not sure about the specifics.
Yeah.
But still, the thing is, Twitter is not going to do it because if there's Instagram and TikTok and that don't do it, it's a matter of like if something is not... When you're talking about a platform that is being used by like millions and millions and millions of people, and these are huge corporations that are fighting against each other for the traffic and for the market, they're not going to do something that is going to hurt like their business, obviously.
Yeah.
And like implementing such a like something that is such a change, it's tough.
Yeah.
And what's the easiest? Ban sex workers, ban pornography. So we're all, so that's what I mean, like we don't know what's going to happen. That's what happened with Tumblr, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say, speaking of what happened with OnlyFans.
OnlyFans was a complete, like it was a weird case, to be honest. I don't know. I've been listening to podcasts and interviews also with the CEO and stuff, and I don't think that I know the truth of what happened. I don't know if anyone really knows other than the people that were really involved. But like, long story short, as far as I know, it was like they were trying to get more funding. The banks had a problem with the amount of porn that was on OnlyFans, because clearly OnlyFans like became big because of porn performers and sex workers that, especially during the pandemic, went on OnlyFans. And then they decided, okay, we cannot, upscale our business with the porn, so let's get rid of porn. And then there was such a big uproar, and it was for the first time in years that the media was kind of like on the side of sex workers, because for a long time, the whole discussion had been against like porn platforms and Pornhub and so on. It was, and the bad guys was always like the big porn corporations. But now suddenly it changed, because it was like, this was about like sex workers, like not big corporations, but like individuals, trying to make a living throughout a really difficult time. There was a pandemic, and this platform was deplatforming them, like, kicking them out and like endangering their livelihood. And then suddenly the media was like, oh, it's a horrible thing to do, actually. And then after they sent out an email being like, okay, you need to go because we don't have porn anymore. And then 3 days later, we're like, oh, okay, we take it back. You can be here. Because apparently...
They had no one left on their platform?
Apparently, I know that I don't know the truth, because you never know. But this could have all been a huge press stunt. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I really don't know.
Knows, yeah.
But apparently, it's like, no, it was a problem with the bank. And the moment that they had all of this pressure and all of this press, the bank either, I don't know, I remember if they got another bank or the bank was like, oh, it's okay. But I can tell you, like, the problem with the banks is that they're really anti-porn. And in order for me, for example, or for anyone else to sell their porn online, you have to work with banks. There's no way. I mean, you can go on crypto, but nobody uses crypto.
No, you can't go and buy milk with crypto.
No, exactly. And like, you could do it, but it doesn't make, then you would have like this segment of society that would buy your porn. If you want to, access like more wider audience, like, you need to have a payment processor. Sorry. You need to work with Visa and MasterCard. And Visa and MasterCard are the corporations that are telling you what is okay and what is not okay to show in porn, which is ridiculous. Sorry, this really went off.
No, I love it. Yeah, I love it. I anyway wanted to talk about this. I was very interested. Okay. Perform or produce?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Produce, I'm going to say, because it's what I do and what I love.
But are you also in a film by hard work? Recent ones? Pretty recent?
I am, but we can't publish it.
What?
I know, it's horrible. You want to hear the story?
Yes.
Okay, this is what happened. I had been doing like, last story for a while, which is like loving couples, super. I mean, they do kink stuff, but it's still like, it's loving couples, right? And then I started doing gangbangs, and I was like, I'm gonna do my gangbang, and I was like, it's gonna be my fantasy. And
Bling stars in the eyes.
yes, I was like, oh my god, finally! And I was like,
I'm gonna hire the perfect actor that are gonna fulfill
course.
my sex fantasy.
exactly.
yeah.
It was like, I'm gonna literally stage my biggest sex fantasy, which of course was a kidnap and rape fantasy. And it was the funniest day of my life, and it's like an homage, not an homage, but it's like a laugh on Reservoir Dogs by Tarantino. So it's like basically I get kidnapped, and it's like this gangbang, and then everyone gets killed. Like people start at the end, everyone gets killed, but me, obviously, and I survive.
Oh,
and but there's like a lot of blood, and there's like
oh my god, I
it's-
must see this.
it's hilarious, but it's really, I mean, it's like, it's not, I mean, it's clearly a film. Like there's not a second where you think, oh, this is real or something.
No.
No. It's funny. Like, they said you have a gun that goes off, and it's like the brains go like,
Yeah.
and then it falls on the other guy, and the guy was like, it was a simple job, man. And like, it's funny.
Oh my God,
like,
it's
literally-
amazing, yeah.
It's like B movie. It's really funny. Well, I can't publish it because you can't. There's blood, and blood is completely off limits because Visa and MasterCard don't allow for blood. Not even menstrual blood.
What?
I know. Let's take a moment to acknowledge it. Visa and MasterCard don't allow for menstrual blood on porn. So my film was like off limits. And then there's violence, which is also not officially allowed. Like this whole like rape fantasy is like you're in a really gray area. And if you have a legit payment provider, you can't have it.
Okay, and
yeah. So
are there
it's a
any
problem.
other providers that you are considering to release this great movie that we all want to see? Or
I don't know.
what can we expect for 2022? 23.
I don't know yet what I'm gonna do with. I was thinking about doing a documentary out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like present it like a documentary, but still
Oh.
show it and show the absurdity of it, Like it's like in a film, like take any war film. You're seeing murder, you're seeing blood, you're seeing violence, you're seeing like, I mean, humanity crimes, and that's okay because it's a film.
Mm.
But if it's a porn, you can't show it,
Hmm.
which is ridiculous because it's like treating humans or like people's sexualities like children, being like, oh no, this is wrong. You can't watch it because you can't differentiate between like fiction and fantasy. And it's like, no, as an adult, you should be able to differentiate. If you cannot differentiate, then there's some other problems there that
Yeah.
should be addressed, Like
Exactly.
serious
They could
problems.
put the laws and say, unless, or like,
I
the
would
whole
say
law process
if
is
it's
so-
consensual. If
exactly.
it's consensual, it's okay.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Smart.
I've been thinking about this for a
Put
while.
you in the position. Please. We need smart people.
They
Okay.
just need, politicians just need to listen to us. Like, there's so much, like, porn is such a good example of, like, how there's being legislation done without talking to the people that work in it. There's like,
Oh, yeah, this is the thing.
they
All
make,
the time.
All the time. They make these laws, and then we're like, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, well, they don't know because they don't know nothing about the industry. And they just, it's like if, it wouldn't happen for another industry. Imagine like politicians would make laws that were like super absurd for cars. And they would be like, okay, cars from now on need to have like this, like, I don't know, like they need to fly.
Yeah.
And then
Like-
you're like, no, but we can't, like, that would be really, like, that doesn't make any sense. And
Then
they're
we have
like,
to
no.
remake everything. But, well, they're
Yeah.
going to fly.
Yeah. And it's like, no, you need to sit down and talk with the industry and be like, okay, what's the limitations? What's the problem? What's the option?
Or like to make it more relevant, it's basically like the laws right now, like we're not gonna produce any petrol cars
Right.
after year 2035. Of course they have been talking to the companies and the people who are like specialists within the field to know why 35? Why do we have to push the market until then? Can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Can we not end it tomorrow? Yeah.
And what are they doing? They're like sponsoring electric cars. They're giving money into the industry. So now if you have a business and you get an electric car, you get such like discounts on your taxes and blah, blah, that it's super worth it. So they're not banning the cars. They're fostering and they're like, supporting the other cars. And that's what they should be doing. They should be supporting the porn industry so that it is a safer place, a better place, a more diverse place. That's what you do if you want to see if you want to elevate the quality of a product, you put money into it. You don't ban it.
Yes. And it's a freaking breath. Thank you so much.